Who is ready to join me on a journey? Today we are taking a trip into the Horus Heresy for the first time in this new series, What is the Horus Heresy? And I think there's no better place to start than the novel collection. In particular, this one right here, Horus Rising. It's the first of 46 at the moment books that are published by the Black Library. There are small novellas, but this is the core storyline set of books. And most importantly, it sets the scene of the Horus Heresy. Now I'm going to start by reading you the blurb, just so you get a feel for what's to come, and then I'll kind of try and talk about the Horus Heresy from a perspective of you've never heard of it. It is the 31st millennium. Under the benevolent leadership of the immortal Emperor, the Imperium of Man has stretched out across the galaxy. It is the golden age of discovery and conquest. But now, on the eve of victory, the Emperor leaves the front lines, entrusting the Great Crusade to his favoured son, Horus. Promoted to the War Master, can the idealistic Horus carry out the Emperor's grand plan, or will this promotion sow the seeds of heresy amongst his brothers? Horus Rising is the first chapter in the epic tale of the Horus Heresy, a galactic civil war that threatened to bring about the extinction of humanity. Now obviously that kind of sets the scene. It is set 10,000 years before the Warhammer 40,000 universe. The 31st millennia, you might say. And what a beautiful setting it is. Beautiful in the sense of it's nice to write about, not in the sense of it's actually a beautiful setting. So, to sum it up briefly, because I don't want to take all day with this video, and I'd quite like to get you hooked on the core of the story that we can talk about later on in depth in certain areas. The Horus Heresy is a time in the 31st millennia where the Emperor controls the Imperium, and they believe in the Imperial truth, which is that gods don't exist, and spirits and magic shouldn't be taught or heard about or anything like that. And he has taken 18 legions, led by 18 of his sons, to claim the galaxy in the name of the Emperor. The idea that man can once again look to rule the galaxy, as it had done tens of thousands of years before. And this all follows a period of difficulty on Terra, Earth, and it required a unification wars where the Emperor basically took control of one group of people and beat everyone else, I suppose is the best way of putting it. And so he now is the basically leader of the Imperium of Man. He has crafted these 18 legions from the unification wars, and each legion has a corresponding Primarch, which are one of his sons. Now, as the story progresses, the Emperor finds new sons, the same sons that he made years ago, but he finds them and they have developed to be a man. And they are obviously demigods, so they stand tall amongst other men, they stand strong amongst standard men, and they are big even by the comparison of an Astartes. So if you think that a Space Marine is probably about 7 or 8 feet tall, a Primarch stands above them. My guess would be about 10 feet. And obviously the Emperor above them still. And once they find these sons, he gives them their legion. Their legion then tends to be supplemented by homegrown talent, if you like, that is then turned into Astartes. And they go on a great crusade to conquer the planets of the galaxy and re-establish man as number one. However, like the blurb of the book said, the Emperor leaves this conquest to study a secret project back home on Terra, and leaves Horus in command. And obviously this sprouts a lot of jealousy between brothers as to why he was picked. Personally, I think if there was going to be anyone, it should have been Lionel Johnson or Rogel Dawn, because Rogel Dawn is stubborn and very stalwart, and the Lion is a master tactician. Personally, I think they would have been better at orchestrating the Great Crusade, but that's just my opinion. And so with Horus now under immense stress, being the leader of the Imperium, you know, the next leader, if you like, he suffers an ill fate, and basically he goes onto a moon, the moon of Davin, or Davin, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that one, and he comes across chaos for the second time. In Horus Rising they meet chaos in a small portion, but he really sees chaos this time in the form of a former planetary governor who has been consumed by the chaos god of Nurgle. And it is here that Horus basically becomes injured to the point where he nearly dies, which is not usually happening for Primarchs. They tend to be fairly immortal. And yeah, so then we enter this situation where Horus is nearly dying. He turns to chaos in order to save his life and convinces half of his brothers that it's the right way to go and that the Emperor has deserted them in heading home to Terra instead of helping them. He could have been on the front line instead of sat in his cave. So there you go, the Horus Heresy begins, and it starts with the bloodshed scenario of Istvan 3 and rolls through onto Istvan 5, and you get a beautiful story continue from there. So the main thing to note with the Horus Heresy is it's really set in the novels, so even the gameplay is based around these books. A wonderful narrative. In my opinion, it far outstrips that of 40k. You really feel the characters a lot more in these books. You really want to learn more about the Legion. And obviously there are only 18 legions, and they are all Astartes. There are other forces at work in the Horus Heresy, the likes of the Solar Auxilia, cults and militia. You've got Mechanicum and Dark Mechanicum are the obvious two, like brothers there, I suppose. And those are the ones that sort of jump out as non-Astartes. But you do obviously have 18 different legions, and they are all very different despite sharing similar armour. I would recommend you start reading the first 5 books all as one, or at least the first 4, and then jump around after, because you get such a rich setting from the first handful of books. In particular, 1 to 3, they're all set as with Garviel Loken, who's a character I'll discuss more in a future video. And he's a lovable guy. He's really, I would say, the pin-up boy or the poster boy of the Horus Heresy. I don't think I've met someone who doesn't like him. He's just a nice character and you can't help but like him. So that's the Horus Heresy story in a nutshell. The game itself is based on the 7th edition rules, although they are bringing out a supplementary book, like a sort of a 7.5 rule book, which is just designed for the Heresy, and I personally can't wait for that. The other books you'll need are the ones that basically they're supplied by Forge World. I think they're £32 or something, so the price of an old codex, but they give you basically what you need for 18 armies instead of just 1, because all the legions play quite differently. And then obviously there are other books. One of the books is sort of the other stuff like Mechanicum and that, and then Talons of the Emperor. I don't know if it has a book yet, but it's in one of the big black Horus Heresy books, which are a lot more money, and I would just recommend waiting until they get patched into a red one. Not that those black books aren't filled with stuff, it's just if you're looking to get into the game, it's quite a big expense just for a small section of rules. But that's in a nutshell what you need to play the game. Those books, the classic 7th edition stuff that you're used to taking if you're a previous Warhammer 40k player. If you're not, then you'll need a rulebook and a dice and measuring tape and stuff like that. It's probably something I'll go into more in a getting started kind of video. This is just to talk about the Horus Heresy and really make people understand what it is, because I know that some people don't, and it's honestly the best game and narrative that I've ever indulged in, and it's because it's played in that way. It's not, people aren't out to be arseholes. They're out to recreate what their legion represents, and I think that's why the game plays so much better. And it's so much more fun when you have an opponent stood opposite you and they've read as many books as you have, and you're talking about the story and you're really indulged in the fluff, and then you're recreating a wonderful battle. And yeah, so it's just a really great game. Obviously it's cheaper now than it ever used to be to get into, because there's Betrayal at Calth and Burning of Prospero, one of which I own and have built and painted, the other of which I am soon to buy. And what I will do when I do buy that, because I'm starting a second Legion, is as I go through it, we'll talk about how to start a Legion and picking a theme and picking your Legion and building up from ground zero and working our way up to a playable army. So stay tuned for all those videos. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's, like I said, the start of a series of what is the Horus Heresy. I'm going to do some character digests in the future, so we'll be looking at the likes of Garvia Loken and First Chaplain Erebus, kind of the key figures first, and then we'll work our way into the slightly smaller ones, just so you can get a feel for those characters and the legions they represent. And hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave those comments below. Let me know what you want to see from this series. If you have any questions on the Horus Heresy, then I can hopefully answer them, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. So that's it for now, and see you later.